Yo, what's up? It's your boy DJ L7. As you know, I'm interviewing actors from all over the country now. This is actually going to be a little weird combination because I have my online activist interview series with over 70 activists that I've spoken to, but I'm also going to intersperse this with, because of the magnitude of what these guys are working on, the length and all that stuff in my personal history with this organization. And I have some other questions about what's going on. So this is actually a very special online activist interview, and it's a very unique one in the series. I don't think I really do this too often. Uh, have I even done it yet? This may be the only one so far. Yeah, out of all the 70 to really get this level of deep dive. So I'm actually going to let my guest introduce himself. Go ahead.
Hi, I'm Sam Fieldman. I'm National Counsel for PAC. We empower a mass movement to amend the U.S. Constitution, freeing America from the corrupting influence of money and restoring a democratic republic that represents us all. I got started with the organization when my wife was pregnant with twins 10 years ago, actually 11 years ago now. And I was, the Citizens United decision had just come down the pipeline a few months earlier, and I was looking for, I was a young lawyer, and I was in New York City and looking for a way to fix that situation where I saw increasingly the world was a place where my kids were going to be growing up without any say in their own government. And I found that the only way to do it was to amend the Constitution. It's the only thing that goes above the heads of the Supreme Court. And I also found that the only effective way to do that was the path that Wolfpack was using, which was to use the Article 5 convention process by getting 34 different states to each call for a convention to meet limited to proposing an amendment on the issue of campaign finance reform. And then an amendment would get proposed and ratified that way. But I also knew that I couldn't do that kind of thing on my own. I didn't have the audience, I didn't have the reach. And at that time, I'd also recently started watching the Young Turks. And Cenk Uygur of the Young Turks kept saying, I have a plan for this. It's coming, it's coming. And I was thinking, well, I hope that the plan is what I researched, and that's what you're going to start, because we need somebody with a bigger reach than I have to help start the movement. And that's the only thing that's going to work. And then he announced it, and that is exactly what it was. And I joined the first day it was there. My twins were born 6 weeks later. I've been New York State leader. I've been in a number of different positions. I'm now national counsel. And my kids are now going to be 11 in a few weeks. I joined, 11 years ago, 11 years and like 2 days ago, something like that. So yeah, I've been here ever since working on this fight.
Hey, man, that's cool, man. And honestly, I'm provide a little bit more background on that for a second, right? The fact of the matter is that for people, well, actually, maybe let's do a little bit more background on some of the things that you talked. I want you to actually respond to this one. So, some people, I'm sorry to say, right? They don't know what Citizens United is.
Sure.
Yeah. So maybe just give us a quick, summary of what that is. Citizens United.
Sure. Citizens United is a Supreme Court case from 2010, and it's used as kind of a rallying cry when people talk about Supreme Court cases around campaign finance reform. But it's not the first, it's not the most recent. It's just one in a series that people found particularly noteworthy.
Yeah.
But the Supreme Court started dismantling campaign finance reform in 1976 in a case called Buckley v. Vallejo. And they've continued that right on up through last year, where they threw out a disclosure law in California, saying that places don't even have to report their disclosures to the state. It wasn't even being made public. But dark money groups don't even have to report their donors to the state. So like there's now, we got from the point in 1976 where there was pretty effective campaign finance laws on the books. Those were thrown out. There was a new one called McCain-Feingold, which was thrown out by Citizens United. That was the Bipartisan Campaign Reform Act. That was thrown out by Citizens United. And there have been a number of other laws on the books that have been thrown out by the Supreme Court. I think, in my opinion, Citizens United is not actually even the best rallying cry for it, and I'd be happy to get into the details of what it does, but I actually don't think it's super important, that particular case. I think the most important one is American Tradition Partnership v. Bullock. Citizens United had a lot of nuance and details. It ultimately concluded, based on this nuance and details, that campaign finance spending could not even have the appearance of corruption. I don't know how they concluded that. It didn't make any sense. But a case out of Montana 2 years later argued that no, it doesn't make sense unless you have the specific facts that were in Citizens United, where someone was making a film about a particular candidate that was real specific. But Montana said our case is different. Montana had 100 years prior
Wait,
been
quick.
in the grip.
I just want
So
to
go
make a
ahead.
quick comment, and I have a quick question for you. Actually, you're besides being activist for a long time, right? We're gonna find out a little bit more about when your activist career got started, but you're also a lawyer, am I correct?
Yes.
That's cool, man. So that's why you're probably looking a little bit more into like the history and can speak more on probably more of the legal aspects of how these things were developed, and comparing these laws against one another.
Yeah.
By the way, what type of lawyer are you? Do you kind of work more with examining these types of things? Or go ahead.
This is what I do with my law degree. I went to law school. I started out in college. I studied first physics, and then I switched to philosophy. And then when I graduated college and went to the real world, I discovered nobody cares whether the nucleus of a helium atom is one boson or four fermions. Uh, that is not something that is interesting to anybody except me. So I started talking to people and arguing and about things that actually mattered in the real world. And that was when I decided to go to law school. Um, and my first job, I started during law school and worked there for about a year after law school, um, was at the New York Attorney General's office under Cuomo in the Public Integrity Bureau. And the big case that I was working on, it was very low level, but I saw a lot of really interesting stuff. Um, was was prosecuting Comptroller Alan Hevesy,
I remember that guy.
and seeing, yeah, there was a huge pay to play scheme.
Yeah, he had to
Um,
go. Yeah, it was pretty
yeah,
bad.
yeah, it was people were paying for access to the $100 million New York State Common Retirement Fund. And they were making a ton of money off that. Um, and I got to sit in on interviews with all these hedge fund managers and things like that. Saw all their bank accounts and E-Trade accounts in one case.
Okay, that was dope.
Um,
So, just to wrap that up, right? Really, because there's quite a few things I want to get to in this interview, right? Yeah,
mhm.
don't want to spend all the time, on
Yeah,
these
sure.
things, but once again, you do have a higher level of qualification in terms of being a lawyer, besides just working on this as an activist for a long time. And you're
Hmm.
not like a personal injury lawyer who's, you're actually more dedicated to this. So it's not like you're just like,
Yeah, this is what I've been
moonlighting this.
studying for the last decade.
Okay, that's cool,
Um,
man. We're gonna get to some of the other questions and some of the things that's coming up because there's some issues coming up. But once again, let me just talk about the Citizens United. He was talking about some of the backdrop of the other things going on. I believe Citizens United said that corporations were considered to be people and they were allowed to have free speech and they're allowed to contribute as much as they want towards saying certain things. And this is actually seemed to be problematic. And Wolfpack was really to try to get them to fix that exact that's just a
mhm.
short answer right there with the Citizens United, from my understanding. Am I missing anything
Yeah.
there? Or
Yeah, no, I mean, there's tons of nuance, but that's the long and the short of it. Yeah.
okay,
Citizens United said that
yeah,
in the most basic sense, corporations are people for the purposes of political speech,
right,
and that there is no even possibility of even the appearance of corruption from political spending,
yeah. So look,
and so
that
that
was
they
really
can
to
do that
introduce people who
freely.
might be watching this because I work with a lot of people across many different groups, and honestly, some of them might not know. They may have heard of the term Citizens United. They may not have really looked into it. So that's just a really brief. We'll get into nuances later, and we're gonna cover some of the
Sure.
stuff. But the thing is that just so you know, I've been an activist for 30 years now. I know I'm much older than I look. People they don't believe it, right? When I say I'm 46, but I am. Right. It is what it is. Okay, well, and the thing is that there was a time when the Young Turks, right, and maybe some of the new generation of people coming in, right, were really kind of like the progressive news channel. They were the one. There wasn't really, maybe Nico House was doing something with Bernie Sanders as well, but really TYT was the dominating force in terms of progressive discussion and all that. So the
Hmm.
thing is that there was a time when Wolfpack was clearly a leader, right? Because Cenk, like, Kyle Kalinske had started Justice Democrats, and I think Cenk was involved with that. And
Hmm.
Wolfpack was the thing to join. And did I join during those times? Yeah, I did. So, right, the thing is that, now let's be real, right? Yeah, the amount of interest that you
Hmm.
guys had, the amount of backing that you guys had, right? A lot of people feel that the Wolfpack thing kind of faded for a while. You know what I mean? I think that actually
Yeah.
when Josh came back on board, like maybe about a year or 2 years ago, I felt like things, for me, right, I saw things picking up a little bit, right? I saw some more website, right? But what's your take on the whole, right? Has Wolfpack fade? I feel like you guys coming back to an extent, but what's going on with the Wolfpack story, right?
Absolutely. Yeah.
Yeah.
So when Jenks started Wolfpack, first it's important just for context that he started it as a separate organization because Jenks politics are very left wing, they're very particular. And he started it as a separate organization because he knew that Wolfpack has to be nonpartisan, open to people with all different kinds of views, not just those who agree with Jenk. And we have plenty of people who can't stand Jenk, and that is totally fine. Cenk's not on our board anymore. He was only on our board in name only for a long time, and now he's not on our board at all. He is still an ally and a supporter. I'm a big fan personally, but whether you like him or hate him, uh, you're welcome at Wolfpack either way. Um,
I like that policy.
and yeah,
That's needed, by the way.
yes,
Keep going. I'm sorry.
yes. I mean, he's still an active volunteer, and Jessica Burbank of the Young Turks just joined as a volunteer as well.
Okay, so
Um,
once again, right? Yeah, he's well qualified, but things they right. I was on the Slack for a while, right? I remember when I first joined in, I was just making calls. I never really got into a leadership position, right? I was
mhm,
happy just to help out as I could. Not saying that I was like super leading anything, but I was making calls. We were calling legislators and stuff like that. There was like I think it was the weekly call, monthly call, right? I forgot. It's been
mhm.
such a long time. There was a Slack. It kind of died off. I think you guys should have had decent funding for Wolfpack, right? You guys were getting a lot of attention. What happened?
So, like I said, when Jake first founded it, his first speech about it at Occupy Wall Street, he said, give me 20 good organizers in every state, and we'll get the resolutions through. And that worked initially. That strategy was effective early on, and we got 5 states through. Because when people hear about the Article 5 convention process, they see the research. 100% of the peer-reviewed research backs up what we're doing. So that was very effective, and it's an incredibly popular idea. So we were able to make phone calls into districts and get people to call their legislator, and they would hear from their constituents, and they would be supportive. And that got us our first 5 states. It was hard, but it was that strategy was effective. What changed then was we had organized opposition. We had Common Cause, we had John Birch Society, we had the Eagle Forum. Um, and these groups were spreading misinformation about what the Article 5 convention process does. Uh, if you look at their sources that they were using, a lot of them were either political statements, they were out of context statements. There's one statement, like quote that they like to use from Antonin Scalia. It's an 8-second quote that is completely out of context. If you go to wolf-pack.com/Scalia, you can see what they're saying versus what he actually said. And it has the full quote and video from that 8-second bit, and it shows the entire thing. He was saying the opposite of what they were claiming he said. But that opposition was well connected and well funded, better funded than we are by a lot. We were never that well funded. Um, it may have appeared so
For sure.
because we were popular, but we were never
Well,
well funded.
Yeah, even recently,
Um,
Crystal Ball came on, and Cenk is still doing events with y'all on the
yeah,
Wolfpack HQ page. There's another Wolfpack. I don't know if that was set up by the opposition, right? Wolfpack on YouTube is not actually. You have to go to Wolfpack.hq. I don't know if you're
Wolfpack
familiar with the YouTube
HQ. I'm
site.
not sure what. There's several organizations called Wolfpack in one way, shape, or form. There's the Wolf Performing Arts Center, for example. Um,
Yeah,
there, it's it's a name that is in use in different purposes in different ways. But Wolfpack HQ is what we are on all social media.
yeah. Now you
Um,
guys have some high-profile people once again, right?
mhm,
Backing y'all up. Even recently, right?
mhm.
Well, as it was in 2019, right? I know that you guys recently did
Crystal
something on.
Ball and Sagar and Jetty joined us
Yeah,
for our forum for our annual
but it
workshop
it
in
wasn't really
2019.
pushing. The numbers really didn't really elevate the way that maybe
Yeah.
one might hope.
See, what
Um,
we didn't have then, and this is what we've been working on for the last year, is a new model, a new theory of change. Um, the theory of change that we're pushing now, a lot of it was based on uh, Pauline Sabin. We started working on it before we knew who she was, but I think her story really demonstrates the model that we're building now. This was in 1928. She was a fan of prohibition reform, ending prohibition. Wanted a constitutional amendment. And 1928 was the lowest point in the effort to end prohibition. Her husband had been one of the major activists working with what was at the time the biggest prohibition reform group, and all the prohibition reform groups put all their effort behind one big play, getting Al Smith elected president. Al Smith never became president. They lost to Herbert Hoover, and the entire movement was devastated. It looked like they were never going to succeed. They were farthest they'd ever been. She started with a small group, and what she started working on was going around the country, um, and building a coalition, working with people who people may have been surprised would have joined her coalition, um, and not just what we had been doing, which was when we need to show support, we reach out, demonstrate the support, and then we don't continue to engage. That
so
was a big problem with Wolfpack
can I
before.
jump in with a quick question? So sorry
Yeah,
to interrupt, but the thing is that so if we take a look at like I don't know if you've heard of groups like the Forward Party. I think that
yeah.
Tulsi's trying to do some kind of independence convention. You
I
also
met
have.
Andrew Yang recently, actually.
Oh, really? Okay. So,
Yeah,
whew, oh my God. I don't know if you know about my war with Andrew Yang, but if he
I
supports
do
y'all,
not.
you know, I mean, really, right? There's other groups like Green Party, right, that should be, right, yeah, on board. I know you guys have your Unity page, and that's pretty cool. I'm gonna actually bring that up on my screen. Maybe I'll even share a screen so you could see it as well. And you know, I see you guys have some pretty cool. Let me see, where's that at? Snap. You guys have some actually cool partnerships. You guys had actually linked up with like our revolutions and stuff. But I noticed our revolution New
Hmm.
York is not on the board there. Change roots with the people of Massachusetts, New Mexicans for money out of
Yeah,
politics.
so that's what
And
we're working on
promise.
now.
Okay, so once again, you guys have been around for 3 something years, right? Yeah, more than that, right? So where's why did they never sign on? Any? I mean, you're from New York, right?
Yeah,
So you have insider information. What happens? Go ahead.
yeah. Well, that's what we're working on now. And what we never really did, or our model for a really long time, was what I said: just try to build up a handful of supporters in a state to make that push. And that didn't work when we had major opposition fighting against us. We actually got rescinded in 2 states in the last year. And I spoke to one of the legislators in Illinois where they rescinded us, and she said she still supported us. She wanted to vote with us, but she was getting pressure from leadership in her party. They would not have let her bill go through if she didn't vote against us. That's the kind of pressure that we have not been able to apply. So one thing that John Shen, our former legislative director, said, he was one of the architects behind this shift. Um, he said he was tired of sending people into a meat grinder, essentially, which is and it's demoralizing. What we've been doing now is using using organizing techniques that we learned from people like Jane McAlevey and others, uh, and modeling it after people like Pauline Sabin, who built this movement where the size and the scope and the demographics of the movement itself and its diversity of thought, of people, of geography, of all kinds is its biggest selling point and is its biggest strength, in addition to all of the arguments that you've got. And we are now starting to use those, just getting started now. We've been working on this rebuilding process of using organizing for power techniques from Jane
Who
McAlevey
pushed for that? Was
to
that
start
Josh?
incorporating.
Who started this
What?
new change? Was it Josh?
It was a few people. Josh was certainly
One of the outreach
involved, but
people?
he was not the main person. I'd say John Shen was one of the biggest
Oh,
people
cool,
involved
cool.
in that.
I'd like to meet him. Yeah,
Um,
cool.
yeah, he's awesome. He's not with Wolfpack anymore, but he's great and still a good friend.
Do you know
Um,
why he left?
he left because he was one of the our very few employees, and like I said, we're not very well funded. He was working here for a real
I
long
get that.
time.
Yeah.
For he's Harvard educated with a lot of student loan debt and got a job opportunity he couldn't pass up.
What about Joan?
Joan is retiring right now. She's still with the organization somewhat, but she's stepping back now. I just spoke to her yesterday.
Yeah, Joan Lundy,
Um,
just so you know, I'm actually going to share that on my screen for a second, right? You
yeah,
won't
she's
see it,
awesome.
but actually, yeah,
If you
she's
watched
actually.
The Young Turks, Jane calls her Bunker Joan, which is
Oh, really?
her nickname. Yeah.
Just quick question. Are you familiar with any of my work?
I am not, no,
Okay,
but
well, yeah.
I wish I was now because yeah, we know a lot of the same people, it seems.
Not maybe as well as should, yeah. But the thing is that we're gonna move on to some of the interesting. I'm gonna share some of my work with you, and also we'll talk about how
Yeah, I
and
watched your video on your webpage,
which
and
one?
I made me very the first video that's right there when you go
The
to
county committee
DJL
one?
7.
The
Yeah.
county committee one? Yeah. What are you interesting? Yeah, I know you're on the county committee yourself. I was impressed with that.
Not on the county committee. Massachusetts works differently than New York.
Okay.
New York is all about power politics. It's Massachusetts is very different from that. I'm on the town committee in my local town in Massachusetts, and I'm
Remember you
a
talking about that?
delegate to the state party.
Yeah.
Um,
Smart move.
but that works, yeah, it works very differently. We don't have like county bosses in
With
the
the
same way.
Democrats, correct?
Yeah, with the
Right,
Democrats.
right, right. And they're
And I
in power
joined
in
because of
Massachusetts, right?
Wolfpack, actually. What?
They're in power because of they're in power in Massachusetts, right? Democrats.
Yeah, the
Yeah.
Democrats are definitely the dominant
Yeah.
political force in
A lot of people
Massachusetts.
say third party. I'm not saying I don't support third parties. I've been in that for a long ass
Hmm.
time. But there's a national level, a state level, there's a local level. And the thing is that
Hmm.
there's different plays in each category. So there's this
Hmm.
simplification of idea. Third party, that's it. Well, who controls the ballot in the elections, right? And at the very localist
Hmm.
level, if you can have that control, that's a big part of the play. So we making that play. There's other things I'm going to talk to you about. Oh my goodness, yeah, I'm so excited. But okay. Let me tell you about my thing with Joan. Joan's cool, but just so you know, I've actually
Hmm.
been contacting Wolfpack for a long time. I actually led Yang Gang and MPP. I don't know if you heard of MPP with Nick Brana. People's
Okay.
Party. Did they ever contact you? Did you ever talk with them? No, because Cenk and Jimmy
Um,
Dore have bad blood.
yeah,
And by the way, or before
both
just
of them continue to support Wolfpack through that.
oh, they do.
I don't
They
know
do.
about. I haven't heard
Jimmy
anything
Dore is a
from
millionaire.
Jimmy
He
in a
could hook
long
up
time.
Wolfpack with, you know what I mean? With he could give that guy, that Harvard graduate, a job. You know what I mean? And give us some high-powered dude to get ready. You know, I don't know why they didn't hire him already because they
I
haven't
haven't
been
heard from
reaching out.
Jimmy in a long
They're
time,
both
but last
millionaires.
I heard he was supporting
How
Wolfpack. I
do
don't
they
know if that's
not?
still
How
true.
do they not have? What is it? 100,000 bucks between the two of them for a Jones. Whatever. Look, I know there's a lot of dudes like you probably put in a lot of time yourself. Look,
Hmm.
we're gonna get to that, but there is a competition, right? You might, because this is Chank's baby. Let's be real, okay?
Hmm.
That might lead Jimmy Dore to feel some type of way because you know they have beef now. That might
Yep.
lead him feeling some type of way about talking about Wolfpack, and maybe that's
Hmm.
part of it as well, right? This whole media thing. How do you feel like is that impacting you feel any of this, or you feel like everything's still
I would. I have not really seen it. I know I was worried that that was going to impact things when that fight was particularly hot and new, but I haven't really seen much fallout from it. We, made a point to stay neutral in that fight. We're not like I said, you could love Jank or hate Jank. It doesn't really matter. We've got people who feel all kinds of ways about all kinds of things. And that's totally fine. We got people who are right wing, left wing. I'd love to connect you with a new volunteer, Jessica, who's further to the right,
Yeah.
in New York as well.
Okay.
And we're trying to get New York more. She's just joined our organizing team, and what we're trying to do now is reorganize in the states and get the organization much stronger and better and more stable. We're organizing in a way that what happened before is if we lost a couple of key people, we would end up losing a whole bunch of volunteers. And we're restructuring in a way that will make that much more stable so that we can grow and have steady growth and incorporate new groups into the movement. Like what you were saying, coalition building is a very big part of the changes that we're working on to make sure that, we reach out to a group and that connection should not disappear, but we
Okay.
should
I,
build that further.
I want to bring up one thing that we're working on right now, actually. That
Hmm.
might you guys probably have already been doing something similar or have already used this, but there's something called the National Voter Registration List, where,
Hmm.
right, through FOIA requests and stuff like that, they found the people who actually vote. We've
Hmm.
collected this data and we've been free for sourcing it here in New York City. There's something called Rep My Block. Theo Chino, that's a dude that I'm working with. Anybody
Hmm.
can sign up for this, say where they are, and then get a list of people that actually vote and go to them for petitions. It also
Hmm.
helps people. It's also a tool for people that are, if they want to run for office, right, county committee, they can automatically generate right off the FOIA request information. They can go locally.
Yep.
So the thing is that now we can also tell politicians, look, I'm not good. I'll go out to the protest, yeah, because I'm a beast like that, but I'm also going to go door to door to each one of these voters that are literally voting for you. And like X election, like this person voted, I'm going to the house. I'm going to the house. We're going to
Yeah.
talk to them. You know what I mean? So hopefully we could get down on that particular project. I think that would be ill, man.
Yeah, that was actually something that John Shen, who I mentioned,
Hell
one of the
yeah,
last things he
John.
did before one of the last things before he left Wolfpack, a new policy that he wanted to institute as a structure test, which is kind of like a test to see how committed you are to the organization, is a voting pledge to like demonstrate that you're going to vote on this issue and support on this
Oh yeah,
issue.
absolutely. That's a good idea. Now, actually, right in the midterms, let's be real, man.
Hmm.
Oh, okay, so now you guys got four states: Vermont, California, Illinois, Rhode Island, or has that been updated? You guys have four.
We had five: New Jersey, Illinois, Vermont, California, and Rhode Island. We lost Illinois and New Jersey in the last year.
Oh,
And that was we're already in the process of reorganizing because we knew that the system that we had in place was not going to be able to
does it have to get
grow or even hold the states.
after they already agreed to it? Do they have to renew that request or something?
The two that rescinded do. The ones who did not rescind do not know.
Okay, that's
So
good.
those three are still good.
Yeah. Did they set it to be? Did they set it to have a timeline, or that state has the
None of
law
our
where it
states
always?
have a time limit on them.
Oh,
There
really?
are
So
there are ones that do, but none of ours. And other movements, there are
is
ones
that
that have
okay?
time
That's by
limits.
like state bylaws or something. That's by state law.
It's whatever it says in the resolution in the particular state.
Okay, that's cool. All right, man. All right. Wow. All right. Cool, man. I got other projects I'm working on too, man, but this is pretty cool.
Mhm.
All right. So, um, now in your experience just of being an activist straight up, right? What do you think are the most effective things that activists can do? Been around it for
The
a long
most
time now.
effective thing is learning good organizing techniques. And Wolfpack just launched a couple of weeks ago an organizer training. So if you join Wolfpack, wolf-pack.com/go, join as a volunteer. We'll go through the theory of change with you. It's the new version of theory of change we also launched at the same time, just a couple weeks ago. We'll go through the theory of change, explain how the process works, how organizing is at the center of what we're doing now. And then if you want to learn to be a trained organizer, it's an abbreviated version of the techniques that Jane McAlevey teaches, and a number of us went through her training. So it's 4 hours long as opposed to her 12-hour version. Um, our revolution, a bunch of labor unions, a lot of places go through her training, and her training is incredible, and I highly recommend it. Ours is geared more specifically toward politics. It's based off hers, but hers is geared more toward labor organizing. Ours is geared more toward politics, and it's much shorter. Uh, and
Is that the
yeah,
same thing as an indoctrination process, or is that something that's part of it, or maybe it's like, the same thing or
uh,
parallel?
I'm not sure what you mean by an indoctrination process.
A lot of organizations, right? Like they got to get on board. They got to understand what the organization's about, what they're working on, stuff like that, right? So they can say,
Yeah,
right?
that's what the
Yeah,
initial theory of change is, where we explain what the organization's about and all that kind of
yeah.
stuff.
Are they going there
The
to hang out, or are
organizing
they going there to
training,
get something done? Exactly, right? Yeah,
yeah, the organizing training is specifically for people who want to come and organize with us and learn those techniques to use. And you can use it for a wide variety of purposes. One of the changes that we just made to Wolfpack just literally last week. There's a lot of changes that are happening actively right now. A change that we just agreed upon last week um, is that now our local teams can do anything that does not hurt our movement, hurt the amendment effort, or hurt the policy. So it makes them much freer to be a full part as Wolfpack of many different efforts and many different policies. And that will help us build coalitions. It's something that's kind of always held back our local teams. Was an inability to work on something that wasn't directly moving something forward if they didn't have that. If they didn't have, let's say, a path toward getting our convention calls in, there wasn't really a lot for them to do. But the other important work that also helps build coalitions is super important. That's why I joined my local Democratic Party. I joined because I wanted them to work on what I want, and they are happy to do it, and they do. But you also have to make sure that you're doing that in a genuine way. I am a Democrat, and I'm happy to work on what they want, and I
yeah.
do as well, and do that genuinely.
And that's one of the
Having
questions.
those
Yeah.
connections with movements, those genuine connections where you're building those kinds of things together, is super important for the long-term stability and the exponential growth.
What candidates are supporting the Wolf Pack right now in the 22 race?
There's a lot of, I mean, we've got about 1,000 different candidates who've expressed support in the state and local level, or the state level rather. We have not really been focusing on that recently, so we don't have like a list that we're promoting or anything like that. It's something that we're talking about doing in the future. Our policy toward elections are something that we've worked on a few times. We haven't had the resources in the past, manpower or money power, to do it repeatedly in a consistent way.
Okay.
And if you can't do it over and over again, it's not effective. It causes backlash rather than benefit.
Okay,
Um,
you might have access to a list. I'd have access to a list of emails of every single candidate running for state senate, not state senate. I
yeah.
mean federal senate, House of Representatives, and also state of every governor. Right? Those I could have reached out to more, but I felt like that was a limit that I want to put on myself. I
Hmm.
contacted all of them and asked them. Actually, we got them together for something called Unified Platform for 22.
Hmm.
Now the thing is that these candidates right here, like even Bernie Sanders has spoken heavily about getting rid of what is it, uh, Citizens United. He speaks
Hmm.
about it repeatedly.
Yeah.
He's still a powerhouse. Would he be willing to come out to support something for Wolfpack? You think?
He might be, but we don't have currently the right infrastructure to make proper use of that. That's why we're building that infrastructure, and our focus is on building the movement behind it.
You know the National
Um,
Voter Registration Database list that my man
mhm.
Theochino is working on. The backend
Yep.
can be provided. You can even backsource. I already have my own. People talk about. I don't know if there's something called. I don't. I even hesitate to say the name because I feel like it's a scam. But like, there's something called Pancake out there. You know what I mean? People trying to make. I'm not mad at it, right? Or there's a lot of this other thing. Locals. you know what I mean, Gab. They have these new alternate social media sites, but you can just, I
Yeah,
have my own social media site on my own website, DJL7, you know what I mean? You can
yeah,
just, with
yeah.
open source
No,
technology,
that kind of stuff we
yeah,
have.
great,
Um,
exactly. What are you guys using? Are you
the
guys using
well,
Action
well,
Network?
no, we're going to be switching from
I don't
we're
like Action
currently on
Network.
Salsa, but we're switching to Salesforce. But
Okay, good. I
um,
don't like Action.
yeah,
That's cool.
we're
I like that.
we're currently in the process of switching from one to another, but we've likely decided on it. We haven't signed a contract yet, so we're not. We have a pretty good idea of what we're going to be going with
I think a lot of the infrastructure
shortly.
can be done digitally. You know what I mean?
Yeah, we're also, you know what we recently started using actually, is Discord for our internal communications. Um, instead of we switched from Slack and Zoom, and it's now all on Discord. Discord has
Okay.
gotten so much better
Quick
for this kind of stuff.
quick question. What's you said you was talking to Andrew Yang recently, right? Wait. Okay, so my
Hmm.
audience knows we got mad beef. Oh my God, yeah. Hey, look, I'm sorry to bring it to you, but it's the show, and it's just exciting for my. I'm sure my viewers are gonna want to know what's going on.
Hmm.
Look, but not saying everything does bad or good, right? Yeah, right. Nobody's
Yeah,
evil or pure good,
it's
right?
fine.
So he's done
I'm
cool
not
things too,
endorsing or
despite
opposing
our
him.
beef, right? But what's going on? Like, is Ford Party about to, you think, support Wolfpack? That would be cool. I'll
Uh,
be for that.
Andrew Andrew Yang is on the board of one of our closest allies, American Promise, and I met him at their convention. I
Okay.
talked to him very briefly about Wolfpack. He's familiar with Wolfpack and generally supports it, but he hasn't really done anything with us.
Well, this is a great time to
And I would
introduce you to the sorry to interrupt, yeah. But this DJ
no,
Elf
that
Elf
was about
7,
it. I just spoke to
yeah.
him for a few minutes.
Elf 7 is about the little people, the people that disregard or
Hmm.
left behind. The
Yeah.
grassroots, not the
Hmm.
celebrities, not the
Yeah.
big media pundits, but the actual
Yeah.
people on the ground doing the work, by the way. You know, what I mean, a lot of these cats talk about it, then they just show up and speak about it at some event, never put in real work on the ground. You know what I mean?
Hmm.
So, and unfortunately, a lot of bullshit happens as a result of that, and abuse, and just straight up like
Yep.
problems. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I got, smashed in the face at Suraj Patel event protesting some stuff, man. I still got I got a broken nose off of that. That's in my videos. I'll send you that and some other interesting stuff. But I'm sorry, mate. I hope he does support. But it's interesting, Andrew Yang. What about Forward Party?
I don't
They have
know about
only
the
like
Forward
four
Party
things on their list,
as
right?
an entity.
They have like
Yeah.
four things that they support, like ranked choice voting, blah blah blah. Look, fighting corruption. I was really in the Yang Gang, really hard pushing for the anti-corruption thing. That's the number one problem, guys. They have the alternate
Yeah.
idea,
And
democracy dollars. Have you heard about democracy dollars?
oh yeah. Democracy Dollar. I mean, that
How
was
do you
not a
feel
new
about
idea
that?
with Andrew Yang.
I understand.
That idea has been around for a long time, and
Well,
it's
before,
been
right?
effective. It's in
Let's
use
tell the
in
viewers.
Oregon, in
Tell the
Seattle, in New York has a version of it too.
Yeah. Some is problematic though. Oh my
Yeah, I
God,
know.
yeah.
There's nothing's perfect. There's issues with it in New York, but the with an amendment to the Constitution, the problem is right now people are trying to come up with the best solution to campaign finance that the Supreme Court will let them get away with, as opposed to just the best solution to campaign finance, period. Local states and cities could have solutions that work for them if they're not encumbered by what the Supreme Court it has not yet decided to throw out. And they've been thrown out everything. They're legislating from the judiciary, and it's not a left or right thing, even among constitutional scholars. Rehnquist was when the 1978 Bilotti decision came out. It was the second major decision. It was the one that first really said corporations are people for the purposes of political speech. Citizens United was building on that. And Rehnquist was basically like, "What the hell is going on?" Like he listed all the old decisions that had to do with corporate personhood and said like, "This doesn't follow from any of that. All of those made sense for, some like because corporations need to contract or corporations need to do like it's important to have them have these rights for them to do things. It doesn't make them people for the purposes of political speech. That was a totally new area. and he was nobody's liberal. He was very conservative.
Okay.
Um,
So actually,
and
that
he thought
actually
that
brings
was
in just
nuts.
one thing that I want to actually ask right quick. So the thing is that, right, you say that we do need the celebrities on board, and you're right about that, right? But the thing is that when we rely on a
Mhm.
commercial, right, commercial success, right, to kind of validate people in the movement, right? The thing is that the other side, the commercial interests, which corporations are, this is actually, I really like the fact that you guys are doing this as an amendment because it really shows that
Mhm.
it's a core fundamental aspect of the American way to say that we do not let commercial interests outweigh the public good. You know what I mean? It's just a straight, like, it's part of the American identity right there. So the fact of the matter is that, sorry, I got off for a second, but look, the fighting the
Well, I want to
corruption
correct
thing.
something you just said. That
Okay,
I don't not maybe I don't remember correctly, but I don't think I said we need the celebrities on board. We will at some point, but like that
yeah,
is not what our focus is. Our focus is on organizing at the individual, small group,
hmm,
local level, and building that up.
absolutely.
Celebrities will be needed to draw larger attention,
Well, the other side
but
can always get more. Like the better celebrities
yeah,
because they have more money. So you always get beat in that game. That's why actually I'm looking directly to turn that whole system over. And I'm not trying to get rid of celebrities, but they do not get to be more than us. And there's platforming them
yeah,
at the events, right? Yeah. Without letting grassroots people up there in the same regard. That got to end
hmm
like now. You know what I mean? So,
yeah.
yeah.
I mean, the biggest thing is what celebrities bring to it, and a lot of them will talk specifically about like that's why they're up there speaking is because they know celebrity is useful for bringing a spotlight to something.
Yeah.
And a lot of them recognize that that's why they're there and are happy to provide the spotlight, and that's great. But a spotlight is only effective when you have the infrastructure behind it that's built out and ready to incorporate all those people that are coming in and organize them. So that's why our focus has been on building that organizing infrastructure, creating our organizer training, creating our organizing team so that we can be organizing all the people that come in when a celebrity talks about us.
Hey,
Um,
do you guys have a
that's what
list
we
of
need
those candidates?
first.
You said about 1,000 candidates support. Um,
Mhm.
you know what I mean? Is there a list of these candidates?
Yeah, we have an internal database.
Okay, I'd like to actually send that list to my mailing list and tell people right now we have the midterm elections coming up, and especially right in the swing states, Pennsylvania, Nevada. You know what I mean? If
Mhm.
um Look, that's just for the Democrat and Republican control. That's not that exciting, unfortunately. Yeah. Hey, I really like also your bipartisan approach, right? You said Republicans.
Mhm.
I don't know if it was in this interview or other interviews that I've watched of you already, but you
Mhm.
make actually a good point of saying that you've actually found Republicans to support Wolfpack as well.
Oh, absolutely. I
Man,
mean, Ken
yeah.
Ivory in Utah is a huge supporter of ours.
Nice.
And yeah, I've become friends with him in the last couple of years, which has been fantastic. I went to a baseball game with him and Rex Ship, who are a couple of Mormon Republican legislators in Utah, and I'm a Jewish atheist from progressive from New York.
I would love to
But you
send
know,
this list to my look, and anybody who would support this particular project, right, of fighting corruption and corporate money entering the system is probably going to be an ally on other stuff. I would the
hmm
ELF stands for the small people, the people that are usually forgotten about in the activist world. Asian American men, let's be freaking real, man. There's no Asian American
hmm
progressive producers that we're too ugly, lazy, or stupid. We got the disabled. We got people in public housing. That's a huge community I'm working with right now with a lot of
yep.
there's 20,000 registered Democrats in the in the public housing projects alone, not even talking about Republicans that are voters that we have track of. I'm telling you right now that we could maybe make a difference. We know about the swing states. We can actually I want to release this information before I think we're a week away and early voting has started today in New York. Hit me with the list,
hmm
especially maybe even statewide, right? I have a national database. It's not that big though. You hit your own mailing list. Tell the world now. Yeah, you down for that?
There's issues with we always have to check with outside counsel. Election issues are not is not my area of expertise in the law.
Oh, yeah.
So if we're going to get involved in any kind of electoral politics, we need to check. It's also, like I said,
You're a PAC though.
yes,
You're a
we're a
520,
non-coordinating committee, but
527
we
or whatever.
also,
50.
yeah, we're switching our main organization away from a PAC and into a C4 because we've never really, we're going to keep the PAC will stay in
What's a
existence.
C4?
So a
And
C4
what's a
is what most
527?
organizations,
And what's a 520?
yeah.
There's some
Let,
people who
let,
don't
let me
know.
explain what those
So
things are,
sorry. Thank you.
because most people don't know. So, most nonprofits that you generally think of when you think of a nonprofit is called a C3. That's a charity. And they are very limited in what they can do in any kind of political arena. They basically can't get involved in politics. They can do education, and which may help people learn about political stuff, and they can do that kind of thing. And Wolfpack is planning to start a C3 soon for education as well as for community outreach and that kind of thing. Um, then our main organization is going to become a 501c4. A 501c4 is used for, they can have much more political activity than a C3. They can't have lobbying as their main purpose, but Wolfpack's the majority of what we do has never been lobbying. It's always been, it's a thing that we do, but organizing, teaching people about this kind of stuff has always been and will always have to be inherently more of what we do than the actual lobbying and going to legislators. Um, so our main organization will be the C4, which um, it's a social welfare group is the legal term for it. And that's a nonprofit that allows for activism and organizing is a very common use for C4s. 527, which was how we were started, and I think the reason we were started as 527 is because a lot of this was changing at the time that we were founded. So I think it kind of made more sense at the time before a lot of this law got more settled. Um, it's mainly used for elections. There's ones that are allowed to coordinate with candidates, and there's ones that are not allowed to coordinate with candidates, and they have different rules. We're a non-coordinating committee, which means we can't coordinate with candidates in an election. The few elections that we've gotten involved in, we did not coordinate with candidates. That's been difficult for us because we talk to politicians all the time. So when we've decided to get involved in an election, we had to be very careful about avoiding talking to that candidate and things like that.
Quick
Um,
question, yeah.
yep,
527s, you guys have to report to CEF or something? Campaign Elections Board?
FEC,
Yeah,
FEC, Federal Election Commission.
you guys
Yeah, you
report
can
there.
look up all our donors on the Federal Election Commission.
Okay.
Once we're a 501c4, we will continue to report on our website all our donors the same way that we had been reporting them to the FEC, even once we're no longer required to by law. 501c4s are commonly used as dark money groups. We will not be doing that. It's actually a problem in the law. When we first filed our tax forms as a 501c4, I wanted to send on our official tax disclosures all of our donors the same way that we do to the with the 527. And we were told that if we tried to do that, the IRS would find that so weird that they would audit us. So we'll put all of the donors on the website, but unfortunately we can't put them on the official disclosures, or else the IRS would say, "Hey, what the hell are you doing?" And they'll audit us, and that wouldn't work out so well.
Hey, we find a way to make it work, right? They pass the
Yeah.
rules and then we do what we do. Yeah, that's
Hmm.
right. Anyways, so look, man, I just have to ask you. You're from New York. Maybe what about candidates? Are there any cool candidates in New York that you know about right now?
I haven't followed a lot of local politics in New York.
I get it.
I know who's running for governor right now. Zeldin is on the Republican side. Who's on the Democratic side right now?
Hochul, I
It's
think.
the sitting governor, right? What?
Hochul, Kathy Hochul.
Yeah. Um, Kathy Hochul wasn't involved in anything that I was involved in when I lived in New York. I haven't lived in New York
Right.
in like 8 years.
Yeah, you're Massachusetts now, right?
Um,
My bad. So what about
Yeah.
Massachusetts? I mean, or just nationally? I don't know.
I can tell you that among Republicans, Lee Zeldin was one of the more friendly ones toward us. When he was very low level at the time. He was, I think, first or second term when we spoke to his office, but he was among the more friendly Republicans toward us.
Cool.
We had several Republicans who didn't want to be the first Republican to support us openly in New York, but were happy to be the second. He was in that category. Um, but I can't speak to anything else on his politics. I really don't know at all. And Kathy Hochul, I haven't followed her politics at all because I have she wasn't on my radar when I lived there. So
Mm,
just because I'm a Democrat, I'm more likely to support her, but I can't say
right.
specifically.
So what do you think is the
Um,
greatest challenge? I'm sorry, you guys going to say something?
oh yeah, and Matt, you're asking about Massachusetts. The our who I think will be our next governor. I she appoint she is works with American Promise. She's a supporter of supported the Massachusetts Citizens Commission, which uh, unanimously recommended supporting Wolfpack among other paths. So I have good hopes that our next governor, Maura Healey,
Oh yeah, yeah.
yeah, Maura Healey is awesome.
Cool.
Yes, and she's going to be our next governor. I'm pretty confident. We'll find out for sure next week. Um, yeah, and I have every reason to think that she's a supporter. I haven't talked to her specifically about Wolfpack. I talked to her about the Massachusetts Citizens Commission, which supported Wolfpack, and she supports their findings and their recommendations. So that's a good sign. The issue we've had in Massachusetts is, the same issue that we've had other places is they tend to listen the powers in the legislature uh, tend to listen to groups like Common Cause because they have the political connections, and that's why what we really need. We've got a fantastic team in Massachusetts. Both Wolfpack volunteers and another group that we work closely with called We the People Massachusetts. Um, Supporting the We the People Act, which is named after that group. That's our local name for it. And got great state legislators for supporting us in Massachusetts. But when it comes time for the leadership to schedule the vote and who they lobby for, it all comes down to listening to those groups that have the power. And that's why our focus now is really on the coalition building and the organizing so that we can build up the power to answer back with more force on the other side. Because when we started off and there was no real political force in either direction, and people were just listening to the arguments, they agreed with us. And we need to get back to the point where we have enough power that they're actually going to listen to our arguments. Because when they do, we win.
Yeah. All right, cool, man. What do you think is the greatest challenge to the Wolfpack achieving its current goals?
The greatest challenge, well, depends on how you want to look at it. You can either say it's the organized, well-funded dark money opposition. And some of them are groups that do really good work in other areas, like Common Cause, um, and uh, and
That did
um,
catch my ear when you say common cause. I was like, what? But
yeah,
okay. All right, okay.
they do good work on
It
other
is what it is. Yeah.
things.
Hey, that's part of the game,
And
unfortunately. Yeah,
their
it's crazy.
and their employees are genuine. Like I've met a number of people from Common Cause. I don't think they employ actors. Like
Yeah.
they believe all the stuff that they're saying. Although I did meet someone from the ACLU, and the ACLU supports Citizens United. There's interviews with their national legislative director, who points out that like most of the people in the ACLU don't agree with that position, but they are responsive to their board of directors. In other words, they're responsible to their big money donors as well. And their board of directors has flat out ordered them to support Citizens United, and that's why the ACLU opposes us. It's not because they've done the research. I had a
Yeah.
debate with somebody from the ACLU a while back, and after the debate, he told me that even though he had testified against us many times, he didn't actually do any research. The only research that he did before he debated me was reading the sources on our website, which was more research than he'd ever done before. And I told him afterwards, there have been other people, the head of the Democratic Party in Hawaii, for example, who initially opposed us, then did the research and came around to join and support us. I suggested, you might, after you look into it more, you might switch. And he said, ultimately it doesn't matter what he thinks because he has a job to do. And his job is to testify in the state legislature against us, regardless of what he actually thinks and whether he thinks that's correct or not. And that, and there are a number of these organizations that, like the ACLU, that do really good work and oppose us. And I think largely because of the financial donors who are telling them to do that. Most of the people involved don't know that's where that direction is coming from. They don't do the research to see the enormous body of peer-reviewed literature that says that we're right. They see the sources that are in op-eds and political statements and out of context statements that oppose us. And it's real easy to get convinced of that argument if you're only seeing that kind of thing and you're not sitting down with like the Department of Justice, three different Department of Justice reports that support us, four different actually Congressional Research Service reports that support us, the American Bar Association, the New York City Bar Association, there's as well as the multiple treatises, the treatise on constitutional law, substance, and procedure, which is a great treatise on constitutional law. All these sources support us, but most people who are looking at this don't look at that kind of stuff. They look at people who they trust, who heard it from people who they trust, who heard it from people who they trust, and ultimately they don't even realize that what they're saying is misinformation.
Hey, quick question. I
That's
know
our
you guys
biggest
are.
that's our biggest
I know
difficulty
the
right now.
real purpose of PAC is to make an amendment to the U.S. Constitution, right? But what
Mm-hmm.
about state constitutions? Is there any
Yeah.
maybe like I push to or local? Go ahead.
Yeah, well, I mean, the problem, comes back to American Tradition Partnership v. Montana, which I think is the most important case in the campaign finance reform fight. 100 years ago, a little over 100 years ago, Montana was in the grip of the copper barons. There's a great documentary about it called Dark Money that I highly recommend. And the copper barons had so much power over Montana that when it came time to move the state capital, they poured so much money and did so many dirty, underhanded tricks. There were more people voting in that election than there were people living in Montana, um, because they just blatantly bought and stole the election. It was completely ridiculous. Um, and around that time, there was a movement for campaign finance reform as part of the start of the progressive era and the end of the Gilded Age. And Montana passed the Montana Corrupt Practices Act, as did many other states pass their own versions. And there was a federal version along with other campaign finance reforms that were made at the time. And it was incredibly effective. They were free from the grip of the copper barons. The people actually had control of the state again. And that lasted for 100 years until Citizens United. Then there was a case after Citizens United that said, like, look, I see all this subtle context that was in the Citizens United case. It was about a movie about a particular politician. There was not the same history that we have here locally in Montana. So what we're going to argue is that it doesn't apply to our specific state law. And actually, the majority on the Montana State Supreme Court agreed with that. They said that Citizens United would be terrible policy for Montana. It does not apply here. The minority on the Montana State Supreme Court also said Citizens United was terrible policy. They did think it applied. They thought it was the law and would rule over them. But they also agreed, the entire state Supreme Court thought it was terrible policy. That was appealed up to the U.S. Supreme Court. And without even hearing oral argument, in a 5-4 decision that was one paragraph long and unsigned, they overruled a century of very effective campaign finance reform in Montana. And they took the holding of Citizens United that political speech can't that political spending can't even cause the appearance of corruption, stripped it of all the nuance and context that it had 2 years earlier, and just said this blanket statement now applies everywhere across the board, no matter what, no matter how much the facts show that that's not true.
That is a crazy cautionary tale, and props out to your experience and study on this particular topic, man. It's dope, man. Appreciate it. Yeah,
Thank
that
you.
was really cool. So, hey, look, how can people, if they watching, hopefully they support Wolfpack. I know that DGL7 is supporter Wolfpack. I do plan on being more involved very shortly.
That's great.
Once
That's
again,
great.
if you guys could get me a list of, you know, maybe some cancers scared to admit, like you said before, right? Yeah, they don't want to be the first one out there to say they support Wolfpack, but if there are ones that publicly do, are there some that are like more prominent that people would know?
Uh, there, I don't know who people.
Nina
Most,
Turner?
it's a
I think
list
Nina
of.
Turner was on your.
Yeah.
She still
I'm
supports
pretty
you
sure she
guys?
was one of our sponsors in Ohio. It's hard to. I could say our most prominent former. The thing is, you have to have people who started in the state legislature and then moved up to federal, or else people aren't going to hear about them because nobody's heard of most state legislators. But I'd say our most prominent former primary sponsor is Jamie Raskin.
Okay, cool.
He's a constitutional scholar. Before he joined Congress from Maryland, he was in the state Senate in Maryland, and he was our primary sponsor there. And he knows this stuff backwards and forwards. He knows the Constitution super well. He studied this personally. He's a big supporter.
I'll try to bring him on the show. Yeah,
Mhm.
sounds like it'd be a fun interview. Yeah.
Yeah.
All right, cool,
Yeah,
man.
we haven't. We got to have more contact with him. He's working closely with our close ally, American Promise, because they're working on the congressional level. So we haven't had a chance to work with him much in a while. But I would love to work with him more closely, especially now that we're broadening the range of what we're able to support and do a little more. I'm hoping that will give us the opportunity to work with him again because we haven't really worked with him since he was in the state Senate, since that's what we've been focusing on.
Yeah. Yo, I'm about to actually share the Wolfpack website on the screen right now, so you're gonna see me
Oh,
moving that
great.
over. The Unity Pledge is actually shown here with the other organizations support Wolfpack, but you can see this. I'm gonna go to the homepage itself. Bam, right there. Um, I guess this is where people should go if they want to support Wolfpack or volunteer, right?
To volunteer, to donate, either way, right there. And yeah, we definitely need support. Right now is a great time to get involved. We have come up with a new set of policies. We're nearly done with that process, and we're starting to now see. We're starting now to launch those. We just launched our organizing team. We've got a new revamped onboarding process that we just launched. Now is a fantastic time to join and get in the ground level of that rebuilding process.
Yeah, I think 2024 should be a year for a lot of big things to happen. And even right now, this is after the redistricting of
Mm-hmm.
2020, and it really caused a vulnerability in the system that it is not that's rare, right? So super.
Yeah,
People
redistricting do
probably
that.
should follow yourself. Do you have social media? Do you update on Twitter or anything like that?
I do not. I don't. I last checked the only time I've used Facebook other than for Wolfpack on the rare time when I need to. The last time was when my twins were born. They're My wife's aunt posted them on Facebook when they were like 7 hours old, and I was like, oh, I should probably announce on Facebook that they were born.
Yeah.
And that was the last time I updated my my
Well,
status
I
on
think you're
Facebook.
interesting. I think you should, right? Yeah, I think a lot of people would. People just even people that are just inside thing. I don't know. Maybe I understand that Twitter's not always like a good thing, right? Yeah, like what you're doing, but it's good to just be patched in, I guess. Yeah, and I would
Yeah,
follow. I would follow. I would
we
want to know what
have.
you're thinking. Yeah, you
I
have a
tell you,
lot of.
Sophie, who's running a lot of her social media now, is killing it on TikTok.
Oh,
You
cool.
should check
Okay.
out Wolfpack on TikTok.
Okay.
She's making great content there.
Cool, man. I like that. All right. Anything else you wanna say before in the online access interview? I feel like I've held you for so long. Yeah. Let me check my record time. But it's been a really great interview, man. I really appreciate it.
Thank you. You too.
Anything you want to tell my audience before I go? I'm just gonna check the record time right quick.
Yeah, I mean, I think it was just wolf-pack.com/go. Yeah, it's a great time to get involved. Where I know Jessica, who's one of our most active volunteers in New York, is really excited about the process of specifically building up a good team in New York. We had one for a long time in New York, and then the guy who was running the team, Joe Sackman, ended up running for state rep, and the team kind of fell apart a little at that point. Which is why we need to change the structure so that the teams can be more stable, and that's what
After I'm done,
we're doing now.
pass my information over to. I'm a beast out here. I'm doing all kinds of crazy things. So
That's awesome.
I'm gonna shoot you some information. But yeah, thank you once again for this interview. I'd actually hit you guys before, but I think I have seen more recently a renaissance as in terms of y'all working to
Yeah,
like, change things and make things happen. So I'm very excited. Wolfpack has a long
we've got
pedigree.
some real hardworking volunteers doing that. We're almost
Yeah, you're a
entirely,
beast, man. I like you, man.
we're pretty much entirely volunteer with like very, very few exceptions, and our volunteers are doing such an amazing job.
Yeah, you stand out to me though. Yeah, some are better than others, but you know, what I mean, it's all good. Appreciate your knowledge and the depth of experience.
So, back for more, huh? You sure you want to do this? Alright, let's go.
Round one.
Battle? You want a battle?
I want a battle.
You want a battle? Battle?
I want a battle.
Scratch for scratch. Let's go. Get ready. Get ready. You don't mind being sad after this competition, right? Let's go.
Round two.
Now you go.
Now you go.
Now you.
Now you
Go.
go. Go.
Go.
Go.
Go.
Round three.
You sure you want to do this?
Round four.